Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here is the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
And yes, this truly is a different perspective, and I truly am Kevin Randle. I'm standing by with another special edition of A Different Perspective. Last time I promised to talk with David O'Leary, who is the creator of the Project Blue Book show that is currently on History. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency, but I lucked out. And I have Arturo Interian, who is a senior vice president for scripted programming for History. And he's going to talk to us about UFOs and how the program came about and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff so we can get an idea of what they're talking about. He is also executive producer of History's hit series Vikings, which was created by Michael Hirst, Knightfall, which is the #1 new drama on cable for the 2018-2019 season, and of course Project Blue Book, as I mentioned, which is coming from the Academy Award-winning executive producer Robert Zemeckis, which I wanted to point out because I think wasn't he the guy behind the Back to the Future movies?
He did Back to the Future, he did Contact, he did Forrest Gump, won an Academy Award for Forrest Gump, did Castaway, so he's a classy, talented fellow.
Well, there you go. And that was my guest, Arturo. How you doing? I didn't get through all the introduction, but how you doing?
Oh my goodness, I'm good. Can't complain. You and I have been, as you know, we've been communicating via email and discussing all things UFO phenomenon and UFO history. So I'm honored and happy to be filling in for David. I'm the executive producer for History on the series, and happy to have a chat with you today.
And that was one thing that struck me is I noticed in our communications that you had a very strong background in UFOs, that you knew an awful lot of the esoteric stuff that most people aren't aware of. And I just wondered, how far back does your interest in UFOs go?
It goes back pretty far, you know. I would say the two things that had the biggest influence on me was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, seeing that in the movie theaters as a kid, and then there was this sort of Jack Webb drama series, which wasn't, in retrospect, if you look at it from today's lens, doesn't really hold up that well, but it was called Project UFO. At least in the United States, it was called Project UFO. That was sort of a proto attempt at what I think we're doing with Project Blue Book, and from then on, I just read every book I could get my hands on, saw every documentary, every special. I've read several of yours, as you know, Kevin. And so when this project came into my office, I was a very willing audience to sort of hear the approach and hear what they wanted to do.
Well, I know the Project Blue Book, the Project UFO show. I actually did a review of that in one of the UFO magazines that were ubiquitous in the mid-1970s, and I sort of remembered it as being sort of a debunking of the UFO phenomena, as opposed to something that was really getting into the nuts and bolts of it.
It was sort of the reverse of what we're doing. You know, as you know, the central thesis of our show is that Hynek goes from skeptic to debunker while he's consulting with the Air Force for 20 years, and ultimately comes to conclude that he's working for sort of a PR operation, a sort of a debunking operation, a fake news operation, if you will. Whereas that show, to your point, I'd like to debunk quite a bit. Once in a blue moon, they'd throw in sort of a Twilight Zone sort of ending. But largely, I think you're right. It was sort of like, it's all, you know, misidentified planes in the skies and whatnot.
But to be fair to Jack Webb, he was the one that got the Air Force to microfilm the Project Blue Book files, so that all of us could now buy copies of the Project Blue Book files and have microfilm copies at our house. And so we kind of owed him a debt for that. And I guess Carl Sagan was the one that convinced the Air Force not to destroy the Project Blue Book files, so that we have that body of information to deal with. So, those are two things.
Which, by the way, that Sagan thing is ironic to me, because as you know, he was a big sort of debunker of UFO sightings. He really said people that saw them were equivalent of people that saw sort of leprechauns and fairies. And as you probably know, Hynek debated him on a couple of talk shows and situations. So I think that was really open-minded of Carl to say, hey, you know what, this is valuable data. Let's preserve it. And obviously, you've written about it. You know, you wrote the great book Project Blue Book Exposed, which is such a thorough discussion of so many cases.
Well, and there's so many more cases in Project Blue Book. What I find ironic now, I have sitting on my desk a little blue hard drive, external hard drive that's about a little bit larger than a pack of cigarettes, and on that is the entire Project Blue Book files, all 12,000 cases, and all the administrative documents. And it just astonishes me that we have that data. We can put it on that little tiny device. So I have access to it through not only digitally, but I also have a complete set of the microfilms. So, and that's sort of irrelevant to anything, I suppose.
Well, I would say that it used to be, I listened to an interview with Hynek where he said, look, it's like, it used to be over $1,000 to basically download or get a hold of that microfilm. So now that we can just, go on various websites or get it on a flash drive is fantastic. It's amazing how technology has evolved so that we can just, Google something or pull something up and just get access to FOIA documents or what have you.
Do you use the Project Blue Book files much in the writing of the program?
We do. I mean, I think you and I talked a little bit about this. I know, as you know, we have a sort of a short documentary at the end of every episode, and we have a sort of a longer one on our website. But when obviously we do deviate from the cases, and really what that's been about is, when you sort of look at so many of these cases. With a couple exceptions, it's like, they saw some really inexplicable lights in the sky, and then Blue Book says, well, what you saw was Venus, weather balloon, meteor, sort of fill in the blanks. And really what our conversations became about was, well, the problem with that for us was that's not conveying to a modern audience the sort of the high strangeness that repelled, that Hynek, that different people felt in these situations. And this is an audience that has seen Close Encounters, that has seen that has seen Contact, and has seen these films. So how do we take maybe perhaps elements from other cases so that emotionally you feel this is some weird, inexplicable stuff for a modern audience, and not just sort of have a recitation of, just the sort of events A, B, and C of a case.
Well, you know that my colleagues in the UFO field are very divided on the program, and many of them are just outraged by it, and they don't seem to be able to separate the fact that it's a drama from the reality of the situation. And you have suggested in the past that this is a way of, as you just said, bringing it to a modern audience. Have you gotten that feel from the UFO community? What is the feedback you get from the UFO community other than just me?
Well, it really depends. I think there's a certain guard that really wanted a documentary. They seem to be sort of a vocal small group. The show and yet I have tremendous respect for them, because we sort of stand on the shoulders of a lot of their work in trying to bring these sorts of stories and cases to a broader audience. I think in terms of the general response, it's been positive from UFO podcasters that really delve into this, to the fact that our ratings have been really excellent. Project Blue Book so far is the #1 new cable drama series in the 2018-2019 season. Our very first episode had over 5 million viewers over the multiple airings, and that exposed them to the Gorman dogfight. Obviously, we changed the name for Fuller. We can get into why we changed the name into Fuller, but a case that I don't think 5 million people would have been aware of or really flocked to had it just been a documentary sort of case of what happened with Gorman over Fargo, North Dakota, and those elements.
But I think the problem they're seeing, the UFO community part of them is seeing, is that there will be those who cannot separate the fact from the fiction and become confused by the elements of your program as if it's part of the reality.
Yeah, I hear that. At the same time, I think that's why we made why we made certain at the end of every episode to sort of have that 30-second and really not just to have that sort of 30-second sort of very documentary and very factual, very correct sort of the key central element of the case, but to say, hey, to find out even more, go on history.com, where we have a different sort of expanded documentary and an article that goes into the exact nature of the case. I think one of the things that I'd love to sort of try and get across is that one of the things I think the show does, and this is a slightly larger conversation, is connect. There are so many elements of this phenomenon and the military response to it, and frankly, companies that are military contractors, sort of involvement with it, that date back to the 1940s, but are still incredibly relevant to today. And one of the things we wanted to be was also relevant to today and find opportunities, whether that's in looking at sort of things like meta-metals, which date back to Roswell, but Robert Bigelow at Bigelow Aerospace says, I've got some meta-metals, and to the Stars Academy, Tom DeLonge's outfit says, we think we have some meta-metals. So in our last episode, we introduced that concept, but it's a concept that goes from at least from 47 to today, and there's other elements too along those lines that we want to look at and sort of try and connect past to present.
Well, we're going to have to take a quick break here because we're running out of time in the first segment. I'm with Arturo Interian, who is the Senior Vice President for Scripted Shows at A&E, and he's one of the, guiding lights behind the History's Project Blue Book. For more information about Project Blue Book, you can take a look at my blog, www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and I usually have a commentary about the programs that have just aired so that you can get a better look at it with, I think, a longer look at the cases that kind of inspired those programs. You can also take a look at the www.history.com/shows/Project Blue Book and get a better look for what's going on as well. We will be back right after this with Arturo Interian from A&E.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
As they often say, we are back. I am joined by Arturo Interian, who is a guiding light behind Project Blue Book. We've been discussing that program and how well it's doing on history, and I understand it's been picked up for a second season. Is that correct?
It has. It's incredibly validating and exciting that people have really responded to it. You know, one of the challenges we also faced in season one is, you get 10 episodes, so you're trying to sort of wrap your arms around cases that are representative of the high strangeness of Project Blue Book, that are roughly from that 48 to 53 era, and to sort of have a chance to sort of maybe explore things a little more deeply that we wouldn't even get to in season one, and not feel the pressure to try and get everything in there, I think is really an exciting creative opportunity.
Well, I spoke to Paul Hynek several weeks ago about the program, because after the first episode, I was a little bit bothered by the portrayal of his father. I thought that it was a little bit over the top. I mean, I knew Hynek. I didn't know him well. I'd met with him a couple of times. I'd been to Chicago to visit with him a couple of times. We went on an investigation together. So I knew Hynek, and I was kind of worried about the way he got into the airplane. Involved with the airplane crash and all of that sort of thing. And I wondered what the Hynek family thought about that. So I talked to Paul Hynek, and he said that you all had been in communication with them, talking to them about it, and worked with them on it. They were pleased. The Hynek family was pleased with the way their father was being portrayed, and part of that came out of your discussions with the Hynek family. And how did they get involved with this?
Yeah, I mean, we reached out to them. We really wanted to. We talked a lot about authenticity. I think there's some historians that really want hyper accuracy, and we can have that talk. But certainly in terms of authenticity, we wanted to really have the people that knew him best, which was obviously his family, and Paul and Joel came on board. One of the first discussions we had was, Hynek was really, it was important to him to popularize science, to find ways to popularize not just science, but this topic of UFOs. And you see that he had sort of a sense of humor about it. When he was at CUFOS, his letterhead literally had like a little green man, an ET, delivering him the mail as the top of his letterhead. If you watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he's there with his iconic pipe, looking at grays. This is not a guy that I think took himself, that seriously, that he was in some ivory tower. I think he loved the idea of sort of popularizing these topics. And when Paul told me, he said, look, I think he, with this approach, he would kick back, pop some popcorn, put on his slippers, and just enjoy it, and be happy that it's popularizing the topic and introducing people to the topic. We felt very validated. Real quick about the plane that you mentioned, that came out of a discussion that Rappelt really went up in T6 trainers on some of these UFO cases, and once you've got Hynek as essentially as your protagonist, the decision was made to why don't we send Hynek up there too with Rappelt in one of these T6 trainers, and hence you got your controversial scene that you responded to.
Well, since you mentioned Ruppelt, is Quinn really Ruppelt, or is he a combination of characters?
It's interesting. He was, at one point, he absolutely was repelled. And I think as we got into creative discussions, one of the challenges became that he was very similar to Hynek. I mean, here you had two people that took the subject seriously, but came at it with a skeptical bent. Hynek maybe to a degree more than repelled. And we're both family men. And then we sort of said to ourselves, well, and are we getting rid of this actor if there's a season 2? Are we firing this guy? Because, Repelt left Project Blue Book in 53, and are we making people suffer through the sort of Captain Hardin and Captain Gregory years? One guy was apathetic and the other, was a hardcore debunker. And we said, no, we think that there's a different way to go about this to make him sort of, have some of the attributes of Repelt, but be a different character, and we can go in some different directions with him and provide a more of a contrast to Hynek, which we thought, drama being conflict, you want characters that are not, always in agreement. We thought that was the creative opportunity and the way to go, but when we made that choice, well, he's not really Repelt anymore, and so we really felt the thing to do was to change his name at that point and make him have some of the attributes of Repelt, but certainly not all of them.
So the reason he isn't called Ruppelt in the show is because he's really a different person than Ruppelt, to make it, I guess, more dramatic.
I think so. And whether that's something as simple as, he can go out on dates and we have one guy who's a family man and one guy who's single, because, Repelt was married to his wife Elizabeth Ann and they had 3 daughters, or whether that's, we can make him a war hero, but a different kind of war hero than Repelt was, and give him some other attributes. We thought, we felt strongly that, and look, there's elements we want to get into down the road. We want to get into sort of Lieutenant Colonel Bob Friend and things like that, but we didn't want to sort of be beholden to getting rid of a character after season 1 and go through sort of a revolving door of kind of, from the audience's perspective, not really likable characters.
Well, I noticed that you bounce around in the time frame. Your timeline isn't linear. I mean, you go to you go to the Lubbock Lights, you go to Flatwoods, you go back to the Green Fireballs, which I guess was last night's program. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I've just dated the program. One of the earlier programs, the Green Fireballs. So you're jumping around in time, and that I think is a bit confusing. Maybe confusing for some people. I don't quite understand the reason for that jumping around.
I think we had a discussion on that. Had we been picked up for 5 seasons, season 1 would have been, shortly after, Roswell and Project Sign is formed, and, Captain Snyder and Colonel Howard McCoy and Al Ledding deal with, the Child's Witted and the Gorman dogfight and some of these 1948 events. But we didn't really have that luxury. And one of the discussions we had was, look, Project Blue Book, in a world of 500 scripted shows out there, that has the most name recognition, and so we wanted to sort of not just take what we thought were the best cases, many of which obviously are from Repelt's book, but put them in an order that we thought created an escalation. One of the reasons we did Gorman first was because we thought there was a real connection to what the 2004 Nimitz incident with Captain David Fravor and what that had gone through, and then you get sort of an incident where there's a sort of a close encounter where they claim to see something, and then you get the Lubbock Lights where really credible people, multitudes of them, see something in the sky they can't explain, and really create a sense of escalation. Whereas, chronologically, you wouldn't have probably felt that sense of escalation, and also, we didn't want to not do those cases. We just thought they were so representative of the high strangeness of that 48 to 50 to 52, 53 era. And so what we make sure in the documentaries, obviously, to sort of date these things and orient them for those that want to know more about the case. Oh, this was 48. This was a Project Sign case. Oh, this was something Grudge looked into, and really sort of for those that stick around for that 30-second sort of documentary, they'll get that information. And obviously, they can go on our website and get a lot more information on the case that it's based on.
Well, as I say, you can go to my blog and get a lot more information too, which is my point, is to promote my blog, of course.
But Kevin, I love that it's given you and Richard Dolan and so many people are talking about cases from the late 40s and 50s. Lincoln La Paz's name is coming up. Gorman's name is coming up, and it's just I'm as a UFO nerd, I'm incredibly excited. Even if they say, oh, look, they got this scene wrong. It really this would have been these Texas Tech professors would have done this, but at the same time, you're talking about it, and that's one of the key goals of the series is to entertain, but hopefully get people talking about this phenomenon.
Well, as I say, one of the interesting things, and I've said it before, I was in Lubbock, Texas in the mid-1990s, and on a lark, I looked up Carl Hart Jr. in the phone book, and he still lived in Lubbock. So I phoned him to talk to him about the Lubbock Lights. For those who don't know, Carl Hart took the pictures of the Lubbock Lights in 1951. And we had a nice discussion about what he had seen. Unlike the other teenagers who have faked UFO photographs and eventually come clean with it, Hart told me that he in the 1990s still didn't know what he'd photographed. He wasn't sure they were alien spacecraft or anything like that, but he wasn't sure what he'd photographed. And I think that was kind of an interesting thing. But that's going back into the 1950s. And I also think that it seems to me that a lot of the cases, UFO cases, the more robust, the more interesting cases are from those earlier years. You've made a study of that. Did you come to that kind of conclusion as well?
Yeah, I think you get these great iconic cases. Including some that are coming up. I don't want to tip it, but really from 47 to 52 is really a treasure trove of inexplicable events that are being investigated. And yes, there's some that come along later, that are fascinating as well. But that summer of 52, 48, these are huge years in ufology. And while you mentioned Carl Hart, I really wanted to thank you and congratulate you. There's always the Philip Classes of the world that have wanted to debunk the Carl Hart photos, and I think you are one of the most thorough. I would say you and Brad Sparks are two of the most thorough researchers to sort of either legitimize or poke holes in a very challenging sort of mysterious field. And I love that you were able to sort of say, hey, this doesn't make sense that this guy would have for all these decades would still hold on to some lie. And I do believe those Carl Hart photos are authentic.
Well, the thing is, when Hart was interviewed by Ruppelt and the people back in the 1950s, they threw the fear of God into him, saying that if this is fake, you're going to be in big trouble. And I think had he faked the photographs at that, the way they approached it would have frightened him into not saying anything about it if they couldn't prove it. But now he had a chance to come clean, and he didn't do that. So I think that it's kind of an important thing to take a look at. I'm going to have to take a quick break here. I am joined by Arturo Interian, who is a Senior Vice President for Scripted Program for Arts and Entertainment and one of the guiding lights behind the Project Blue Book show. And their website you can take a look at is www.history.com/shows/Project Blue Book for more information. My blog also, I do a weekly review of the program with additional information about it at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And while I'm thinking about it, if you have an interest in the paranormal, take a look at some of the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network. There's some good stuff out there that might interest you as well. We will be back right after this with Arturo Interian.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
And I have returned. I'm joined by Arturo Interian, who is a senior vice president at Arts and Entertainment. We're talking Project Blue Book and UFOs and that sort of thing. I guess the one thing that I wanted to know, and you sort of touched on it, but what was the inspiration for coming up with the program? What was David Leary's motivation for presenting this program on Project Blue Book?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he thought it was a fascinating. You know, there's many ways you can come at the UFO subject, but the very idea that factually from 52 to 69 or 70, if you want to be technical, but it was 52 to 69, there was an Air Force official government study of this phenomenon, and its lead and when the twist was that the lead scientific consultant ultimately really kind of enjoyed sort of poking holes in and saying, this is all fake, it's all weather balloons. But over time, there was a preponderance of cases he couldn't dismiss, and went from sort of skeptic to believer, but was basically participating in something we call today fake news, which is no matter what they found, and they were going to say it was a naturally explainable phenomenon, even when that was clearly not the case. So that was fascinating, and the more you sort of dug into sort of the reality of that, and sort of the fact that, wait a minute, were there other groups that were investigating UFOs, and Blue Book, as Hynek came to sort of suspect, was that just sort of the front operation, and the real investigations were happening in other places and being done by other people, and then Hynek's not getting sort of the top secret UFO reports, as he reported in his second book, I think, the Hynek UFO report. There becomes a really interesting, fascinating sort of cover-up operation, but yet at the same time a very real phenomenon. And so I think David keyed into the way to take on this sort of the greatest mystery of our time, this UFO phenomenon, is through Project Blue Book, is through Hynek, because so many of these themes are so relevant to today.
Well, and Hynek is kind of the thread that keeps the whole thing together, because he entered early on and he was there almost to the very end of Project Blue Book. So he would be a good thread to link onto.
Yeah, and as you know, obviously in an alternate universe, it would have been Project Sign, and he would have been approached by 3 Air Force officers from Project Sign, but we had to sort of find a way in, so we had him joining it in the Project Blue Book era.
Well, I know one of the things that bothered, I guess, a lot of my colleagues is I said it's kind of the mixing of fact and fiction. And what I think about is, back when I was growing up, my mother told me that George Custer had been promoted to brigadier general by mistake. And if you go back and you look at the history, you find out, well, that's not true. He was an academy graduate. He was promoted up the ranks, and almost everybody who was an academy graduate in the Civil War ended up as a general of some kind, because they were the professionals and there were all these volunteer organizations. But she had it in her mind that George Custer had been promoted by mistake, and it all comes out of a movie, They Died with Their Boots On. And I guess what my colleagues, some of my colleagues fear, is there's going to be a mixing of this. People aren't going to understand where the fact and the fiction departs.
Yeah, I think culture. I mean, look, I think a couple of things. Certainly, this has been a problem since any sort of true story has been put to film. I mean, I think you and I may have talked about it. Everything from the film The Untouchables to Saving Private Ryan to Gladiator to to They Died with Their Boots On. There's elements that are you're trying to tell a larger truth about Custer. You're trying to tell a larger truth about Elliot Ness, and life doesn't always break down in sort of a dramatic structure that always works to tell that story in the best way. And I think it's exacerbated even more, I would say, in a scripted series. By that I mean, you've got multiple episodes that you have to hook people from episode to episode. So if you and I were making a Hynek movie, let's say, Hynek could very much, first half of the movie he's a complete skeptic, even though it's not quite right. There's 1953, he wrote an article for the Journal of the Optics Society of America saying maybe there's something to this, but ultimately, but then it's 1966 comes along, Michigan Swamp Gas, and okay, now he's in debunker mode because he's sort of been humiliated. I think for an audience that's watching episode to episode, it would be very challenging to have Hynek be in hardcore debunker mode episode after episode for season after season until you got to 66, because the audience sort of knows they have the benefit of historic hindsight that, like, yeah, Hynek, there's something to this, and we're trying to create a character that's one of the, if not the smartest guy in the room, one of the smartest guys in the room. So he has to catch on a little more quickly than he would if we did a movie where you're sitting down for 2 hours and you could sort of tell that larger truth via dramatization.
Well, let me ask a question that bothers me immensely. Who is
Sure.
Neil McDonough? What he's in,
his character or who he's based on?
who is he based on? I admire him as an actor.
Sure.
I love the things he's been in, like Band of Brothers and whatnot. But
Sure.
who is he supposed to be? I guess is the way I should have phrased that.
He's largely he's largely Twining and Cable, I would say. He's someone that before our show starts knows that there's something to this phenomenon, and is going to is going to keep a policy that keeps a lid on it. But so I'd say those are two of the he maybe has a little General Samford in there, but once we sort of said we want this guy to not be gone after a season, then you sort of have to do a composite sort of general, and then you feel like, well, if he's going to do this, that, and the other, we got to change the name, because really now he's not Twining anymore. Now he's not Cable either. So so those are some of the people that I think that are in his DNA, if you will.
And if you want to nitpick here, I noticed last night he's wearing an Air Force Commendation Medal.
Mm-hmm.
That medal wasn't created until 1958.
Well, I'm going to have my wardrobe person fired immediately. I'm kidding, Kevin.
I know. As a ex-military, I noticed those little things, and I'm probably like one of only 4 people in the entire country that would have picked up on that. Sometimes those things happen, and we try never to do it. And you and I have talked a little bit about this. Sometimes those things happen because it looks good on the uniform. So that's how those cheats can happen. Well, and a lot of people, I do notice. You used to be in Hollywood, they just throw the stuff on the uniform and nobody really paid much attention to it. And in today's world, they seem to get it much more accurate. The ribbons are in the right precedence on the chest. They're not upside down. They're not mixed together. The wearing of the various insignia is proper. So that's come a long ways in the last 40 years or so. So that's kind of impressive.
And while we're nitpicking, I just want to tell people out there that a couple things. Yes, Hynek has a pipe. You'll see 2 things. You'll see it in later episodes. He had it in earlier episodes. The scenes were scenes at home that we ended up cutting and not making the final sort of cut of the episode. We have to be sort of roughly 45 minutes. And also, I found that like a guy with a pipe looking around sort of a mysterious scene is just very. It almost played too Sherlock Holmes, almost like a parody. So we're very judicious about his use of the pipe. And one other sort of inside baseball detail, as you know, he played Littlefinger on Game of Thrones, Aidan Gillen, who's our amazing lead actor. And the discussion became like, well, Hynek for many years had a goatee, but the worry was that he's going to look like Littlefinger in the goatee. So can we just have him have like just a beard? And Aidan was very keen to like, this is a new character. So I think the goatee will show up at some point down the road, but just to sort of get the show on its feet, we didn't want to have him look too much like Littlefinger.
Yeah, and I noticed he was Littlefinger right away, and I was yelling, "Where's Sansa when we need her?"
and that's probably That's not pride. No, it's what appealed to him is he had played such a horrible villain, and
yes.
here was sort of a very decent man, a family man, kind of up against a giant sort of Air Force and government machine, and that really appealed to him.
Well, I've just got a couple of minutes left here with you.
Sure.
One of the things that in Game of Thrones, the planning for some of the things goes back years. The Hodor situation.
Yes,
you
sure.
find out in like the 50th season why he's called Hodor and where that came from. In a scripted series like that, do you plot it all out that far in advance?
We do. I'd say yes and no. We knew we had 10 episodes, so we knew that there was some things we had to resolve, and there's things that we hope we're going to be able to get to. And I know we're short on time, so maybe at some point down the road I can discuss with you why that secret group is not the Majestic 12, but I'm sure many people think it is the Majestic 12, and I can talk to you about the 4 or possibly 5 secret UFO policy groups that I believe exist and why I believe they exist, and which ones had power and which ones didn't. But nothing in the show, I would say this, nothing in the show is random. If you see something like, wow, that didn't happen, there is a larger conversation or a larger point. It's really been thought about. So, anything from Russian spies to a secret UFO policy group has really been thought about and poured over and discussed historically.
Well, I just have run out of things to say because I haven't run out of time, basically.
Sure.
Let me thank you for taking the time to join me here on A Different Perspective and talk about Project Blue Book and some of the behind-the-scenes things that are going on and the directions things are going and how things came to be. The website, I guess, is www.history.com/slow/Project Blue Book. Any hints of things coming in the future?
There was a big event in the summer of 1952 that was a really big deal that I think we might be headed towards, and it really led to a big press conference and a lot of discussion about what could have happened in the sky. So that's the only hint I'll give you, and those that know what I'm talking about will know what I'm talking about.
Well, and last night's hint, there we go again, last night's hint. In the hint we got from a previous show, it looks like you're going to deal with the Florida Scoutmaster next up.
Sonny DeVerger, we're going to do our take on the Scoutmaster case.
And that'll be interesting to see how you do it. Well, let me say thank you so much for taking your time. I appreciate you doing it, and good luck with the show. Well, you're having good luck with the show. We're looking forward to more episodes.
Well, Kevin, thank you, and I just want to say I'm honored to be on your show. I've read so many of your books, and I'm happy to sort of let you behind the curtain and say, hey, why did they do that instead of this? Always happy to have that discussion with you.
Well, thank you very much.
You got it. All right, thanks, Kevin.
This has been Arturo Interian, who is the Senior Vice President of Scripted Programming for Arts and Entertainment. You'll find out more about things at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. When we come back, I'm going to take a few minutes to discuss the last program we did and then a little bit more about things I've seen about Project Blue Book. We will be back right after this.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
I am back, and I say I am back because I had to let the guest go. We had him just for 3 segments there. I appreciated the time he took to speak with us about Project Blue Book. One of the things I wanted to do before we close this show out today is last week we were talking about Treasure Quest, and we had Cappy on it, Keith Pleskett. And one of the things that always bothered me is, he mentioned that he had 2 tours in Vietnam. And I always said, am I the only guy that only had 1 tour in Vietnam? And he explained it to me at one point, that what it meant was that he had been in Vietnam for 7 months. He went on R, he came back, and that was his 2nd tour. I always thought of that as a single tour. You got a vacation in the middle of it. And so by that thought process, I had 2 tours as well, so I can join the club, I guess. My first tour was 10.5 months because they screwed up and I didn't get my R&R in the middle of the tour. And I had about 4 weeks when I came back, which means I didn't go through the Great Depression that everybody else did when they got back from R&R, realizing they had months to go. I had weeks to go, so I didn't care. But I hope that those of you who listened to the program and listened carefully picked out some of the things that were said about Treasure Quest and the reality of that program. And I am astonished that I've had very little feedback on that program. And I thought there would be people who would want to discuss the things that Pleskett said to us while we talked about Treasure Quest and the reality of the program. But one of the things that people had asked me is they found this treasure at the very end of the 2nd season. It's this Incan sun god and these little llama figurines, and why they didn't do anything more. And I think that kind of answers the question about how valuable was that treasure they found, what they had found. It wasn't very, because they didn't come back for a 2nd season there. They went into a different direction, and they went off to chase another treasure, which is all based on a book written by, I think it's C.J. Prodgers, about his Bolivian adventure, and that's where we are with Treasure Quest now. So those of you who are excited about the Treasure Quest programs, you'll have to take a deeper look at that, or a closer look at it, and try to, I guess, view a little bit between the lines on that to see where it's going. Let's go to Project Blue Book. One of the things that is said by my colleagues is that they're a little bit disappointed that it wasn't more of a documentary. Why did they go the direction they did? I've always separated it in my mind between the drama, the necessity of creating an exciting program, and the reality of the situation they're dealing with. And I could separate that in my mind and look at it as an entertaining program. Some of my colleagues don't even like it as an entertainment program. I kind of enjoy it, and it may be because Littlefinger's in it, I don't know. But I've always thought of it as an entertaining program, and that the little bit they do at the end, I thought was a little bit, not quite enough, let's put it that way, of explaining the case upon which the program has been based. And they take some liberties with those things in the interest of drama, in the interest of creating an interesting program. And I can kind of understand that. And the other thing that is I guess, interesting is it seems to be creating a buzz in the world of UFOs, because a lot of my colleagues are talking about the program. Most of them don't like it. but they're talking about it and they're tuning into it. Although some of them say, well, we're really glad that you're watching it, so we don't have to, which I think is kind of a sad thing to say. You should really kind of view the program for yourself to get an impression of it. What I've liked about the program is the way it brings, I guess, the world of the 1950s back to life. They have some stunning sets. They have those beautiful old cars. You get a real feel for the 1950s, the early 1950s, late 1940s from the program, which is irrelevant to the UFO aspect of it. So the question, I guess, is it a disservice to ufology that they're really doing a program that is more X-Files-like than it is a history of Project Blue Book? Is that a bad thing? And if you look at it from the point of view of UFO research and how it may create in minds of people things that didn't happen in reality, and that's why I brought up the comment about my mother believing that Custer had been promoted to general by mistake, because it shows how those sorts of things bleed into the culture and people see those things and run with them from there, taking it as, I guess, as the truth. But I've always looked at the program, I guess, because it is more leans more toward the fictional aspects of the UFO field than it does to the reality of the UFO field. I see this great dichotomy there that I just don't think that people would not be able to make the distinction between the fact and the fiction. And I say that reluctantly because I did see in TV Guide the other day, and I don't buy it, I just pick it up at the newsstand to read the jeers and cheers section of it, that Project Blue Book got cheers for the way they were presenting the program and delving into the reality of the UFO phenomenon. So my concern about people not being able to separate the truth out of there may be in fact a truth, that people cannot do that. So that was one of the things that, and I've talked to Arturo about that frequently, about why things are done the way they are on the program. And I guess, we provided them with a platform to expound a little bit about what the program is and where it's going and the directions it's going. And I'm appreciative of the program. I enjoy it. My friends do not. If I was running the show, I would look at the military aspects and get it a little bit better. I would know the things. In the program, they had them driving Jeeps and they had government license plates on them. Well, military vehicles don't have government plates on them. They don't do that. I mentioned that the one general was wearing a medal that had not been created until 1958, that sort of thing. So the saluting, they always get this. Movies and television are terrible on saluting. They just do not understand how that works. And one of the things they don't really know is on the flight line, which means you're out there where the airplanes are parked, you're usually not wearing headgear. You're not saluting because there's danger on the flight line. Planes are maneuvering around. The hat can be blown off and sucked into a jet engine and cause damage to it and that sort of thing. Little things like that. But that really doesn't harm the reality of the program because Hollywood just doesn't understand that at all. And I don't think they've ever understood that from my experience in watching what they're doing. So, we can pick it apart and we can nitpick it that way. Or we can take a look at it as entertainment, which is what I do. I enjoy the programs, although I will say they're getting a little bit too far afield into the Russian spying aspect of it. That's a kind of a subplot that I could do without, but that's the way they're doing. That's the way they're doing the program. So you can take a look at that and wonder if that is really relevant to that sort of thing. I know when I was talking to various witnesses down in the Roswell area, one of the things that they all said, maybe not they all, but many of them said, was that there was a great deal of Russian espionage in the area. course, the reason would be the 509th Bomb Group, not because they picked up a flying saucer or any of that, but because they were the only atomic strike force in the world at the time. And there was questions that needed to be answered by the Soviets. You know, how many weapons did we have? What was the capability of the units that would have had those weapons? Could they deliver them? So there was Russian interest in what was going on in not only Roswell but Fort Worth, because Fort Worth was the headquarters of the 8th Air Force, 509th being part of the 8th Air Force, 8th Air Force being part of the Strategic Air Command. So you had all of that kind of stuff going on in Roswell. So there was Russian interest in what we were doing. James Carrion, when he talked about his Roswell deception, brought all of that together. There's a lot of Russian stuff going on, and a lot of the UFO phenomenon was related to this idea of attempting to convince the Russians that we were, our capability of what was for retaliation was much greater than it was. So maybe the Russian spy aspect will have some real relevance later on down the road. Anyway, as I say, the point really is, I enjoy Project Blue Book. I look at it as sort of an X-Files program as opposed to a real treatment of ufology. It does give you an interest in some of the cases. They're bringing up some of the important cases, some of the cases that are well documented in the Project Blue Book files. And by well documented doesn't mean they were actually alien spacecraft, but there's a lot of information about them. So you get a look at that, and it may incite interest. One of my colleagues did say, wished at the end of the program, it said, well, go to my blog to take a look at the stuff that I write later on as a way of expanding on the knowledge, the real knowledge of those specific cases. And I kind of appreciated the comment by my colleague. You can take a look at the blog at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. I've looked at each of the programs that have aired so far. I put up commentary about how the real event took place and what the real conclusions were, so you get a better feel for that. You can take a look at the X-Zone Broadcast Network. I do not do enough to promote the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and I should do more, because there are a lot of fine programs on it. I've got some friends who do programs on it, and I think you should give those a listen if you're interested in other aspects of the paranormal. If you're interested in the UFO Roswell case, take a look at Roswell in the 21st Century. And if you are interested in the Socorro UFO landing with Lonnie Zamora, take a look at Encounter in the Desert. That kind of wraps it up. I will be back again with another special edition of A Different Perspective. Thanks for listening.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real.
Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.